Welcome, everybody. Today is Thursday. Oh, it's the 21st of November. It's my sister's birthday. That's so exciting. She's 51 today. We're super excited to have Nicky, Bowman, Kim, Leonard, and Madeline Brandt joining us today. We're going to be talking about social entrepreneurship. And I had to stop them because we started talking already. And I was like, we got to put this on the video. So I promise not to talk too long. And thanks for bringing Icky, the guinea pig, along with you today. Icky is a little graphic that somebody created for me when I was the IC TIG chair back in 2015. And I call him Nicky because it's the IC, and I think it's just cute. So the current IC TIG incoming chair, Naima, is here. She can do whatever she wants. She can rename them for all I care. But anyway, it's neat to see him. But I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you guys go into social entrepreneurship. Feel free. We've already done prayers. We've already done land acknowledgements offhand, but you're free to do it again. So go ahead, Nicky and Kim and Madeline. It's up to you.
I'll do the short version. Kolamausi ni deshinzi. Anishi kish shalamokwe elamiliang yon kwai kish quick walk. Mitch walkin, wala Melissa walkin, walk ni alagomatit, walk ni wikian, walk kukana aki, walk la huian, walk wichapikal, walk kohamina walk kamahosina walk, nichanina walk Kukana Aki walk, Nimu Bausa Wakanam, Anishik, 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 Anishik. Kolamosi, hi, I'm Nicky Bowman. I'm on the ancestral homelands of the the Menominee Nation, and I'm Stockbridge Munsee. I'm Mohican and Lenape, or Mohican, as I like to say. And I just wanted to say a quick prayer to bring us in a good way, to thank the Creator for all our relations, Nialagomatit for Kachosamina, Ninjosuk, which means my friends, my allies who are on here. Wunjini Alagomatit, if there's any indigenous relatives, that's what that's for, Wunjini Alagomatit. And then Lawian is how we say winter. We got our first snow here, and a teaching is we wash off with the first snow to thank Creator and ancestors for bringing us out of one season and into a new season. And it's a quiet season, and we follow the sun. And I was jokingly saying if I was a better indigenous person, I would go home when the sun goes down, which is about 4:30 around here. But I'm a social entrepreneur, so I felt like that was a good transition in. And I just pray under Nipahum, Grandmother Moon, when I get home. So thank you for being here. I'm super excited. Hi, everyone. I'll pass it off to my co-presenters, Madeline and Kim.
Great. Hello, everyone. Good morning. What a lovely, warm welcome. I am Madeline Brandt, and I'm with the Camasia Group. I'm here in a rare appearance wearing the same outfit that I'm wearing in my headshot, which is always like a little bit embarrassing. But here we are, and I'll pass it over to Kim to put her voice in the call as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and I have the slide deck open and can't find the buttons, so if I'm slow, that's my excuse today. So happy to be here, and just want to share that Madeline and I are in the Portland metro area, and because the Portland metro area is where two rivers come together, the Clackamas and the Willamette, it has been home to many, many, many Native peoples over millennia, including the Cowlitz, Cuthlemet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, Wasco, Multnomah, and many, many, many other groups. And some of whom are starting to make progress around federal recognition and land back, and some really exciting stuff has been happening here locally over the last few years, which is worth celebrating for just a quick moment. So I think we're going to turn it back to you, Nicky. Do you want to go over the sort of our thinking about what this is about today, or I'm happy to do it if you'd like.
Go ahead. It's fine.
Okay. Our goals today are self-serving, actually, to be honest, because we want to share about about Camasia Group and about Bowman, but we also are learning about social entrepreneurship concepts and want to share what we're learning and the way that we're thinking about this from ourselves. Camasia Group is a newer organization, and Nicky's more seasoned organization, BPC. We have some deep thoughts, a la like Jack Handey and SNL, about our work and our future around social entrepreneurship. We have some additional resources for you to check out that are in the deck that you may have already seen. And we're really, really, really curious about what you're thinking, how you're thinking about all this, what you're exploring and trying and playing and doing. That's really what it's about for us today as well. And I think we're going to turn it to Nicky now to share a bit of an introduction to her work and firm.
Well, I won't go on too long because we want to get to the part where it's question and answer. So we're going to whip through this fast. Hopefully you've all received the PowerPoint. And thank you for indulging me to put a PowerPoint together. I like to organize my thoughts. But I am the 4th generation Bowman entrepreneur. If I were fully moved into my office, I just moved into 3,000 square foot space from probably about a 900, 1,100 if I'm counting the bathroom, my old space. And so I usually have pictures up and they go back 5 generations through. And you'll see the picture on the next slide of the oldest entrepreneur that I have a picture of, which is my great-great-grandpa, Beaumont. And I started out as a one-person shop, or, having a main job and then a side hustle. And I didn't know that that my consulting business could be the main hustle and covering, from jobs creation and job sustainability for families and retirement and benefits and so I guess technically a sole proprietor in 1998. I got that off my own social security number and became an LLC in Wisconsin in 2003. Had employees in 2001, and then eventually became an S corporation in 2007. There were a lot of things that I've learned, and we could talk about later about why I do or don't want to be an 8A certified firm and directly work with the federal government. I probably could have tens of millions of dollars in contract, but then I would have that many headaches. And I'm not doing it. So I just like to be a happy little subcontractor, especially funded by federal things. And then we have lots of certifications and awards through business ed eval research. But really, I use a lot of my traditional knowledge embedded in the work that I do. And I hope that's what sort of comes out today. And I have to tell you, BPC has survived a recession, employee theft, employee destruction, and a pandemic. So I am very grateful to be here. I had the smudge on for us as well as myself. And so there's a story behind Wachuu, which means accompanied by the 4 eagles, flying eagle woman. I was given my spirit name almost 30 years ago. I wasn't born with the language that I had, but I was an elementary ed teacher and loving my life. And basically, they said, you're going to be, because of your Polish mom and your native dad, you're going to be talking to people from the 4 eagles represent the 4 directions of the cardinal directions. So people from all 4 directions on Mother Earth and from all 4 tribes of humankind, if you will, and everything in between. And I just thought that was nuts. And here I am. So I literally sometimes get caught up in my feelings going, I'm really doing this. And my elders from a sweat lodge and a eagle ceremony, and I have a white eagle feather sitting right here by my desk, told me I was going to be a teacher. But my teachings would be to help bring voice and visibility for Indigenous people and First Nations. And so I'm living the dream, living the vision, living the name. So I feel very grateful. And I have an article about my origin story. If you'd like to look it up, it's under the AEA 365 blog. It was published in 2017. So in doing research for this project, I'm like, oh my God, I wrote that. All right. I think that's all I have. That's Dad and Aunt Bon. They just celebrated 78 and 81 years. It's in front of our new building. I'll pass it on.
Congratulations, Nicky. I think that's
Thank
awesome.
Awesome.
I want to ask, I know I've got a chance to ask questions at the end of the session, but I definitely want to ask about all the struggles through those things at some point, but we won't. I'm not going to take you off track.
Okay. There you go.
Great. Thank you, Nicky. And it's such a fun contrast, I think, to hear Nicky tell that origin story that is long and complex and so intentional, and for us to share that we're just babies getting started on this journey ourselves. So Madeline and I met while we were working together at the Oregon Community Foundation. I was there for about 10 years. She was there for about 7. We've lost track. And we launched Camasia Group this fall with the intention that it evolve beyond just the two of us, but that it start sort of as a container for the work that we've been doing together since we left the foundation, and work that we hope to do and want to do. Madeline, do you want to talk a little bit about either Camasia or group, and we can kind of bounce back and forth?
Sure, I can talk about either one. I love to hear you talk about Camasia because that was sort of that started with you. And then maybe
Sure.
I'll hop in after.
Perfect. So Camasia, why the name Camasia? You're looking at a camas lily. Camas lilies are a really important native plant here in the Pacific Northwest that grow all the way from Vancouver, the BC, Canada area, all the way through to Southern Oregon. They look different depending on where they're growing, anywhere from like a white to a dark purple. And this one in the photograph grew in my yard. It volunteered a few years ago to my great delight, and I have been trying to encourage it to spread ever since. But camas flowers are a really important indigenous first food. They continue to be cultivated. It's said that when Lewis and Clark came through Oregon, there were fields, seas of it across the meadows here. So beautiful representation of the cultivation of the landscape that Native peoples have done and still do here. And it grows by seed and by rhizome. It's this beautiful star lily with multiple clusters. It's an early flower in the spring. So there are all kinds of reasons why we love the camas lily, and Camasia quamash is the scientific name for the sort of main plant. So that's why we picked the name, and we are having fun playing with many metaphors that allows for us. Yeah, Madeline, you want to talk about why group?
Yeah, why group? Thanks, Kim. So we are both trying to be really intentional about the ways that we work and also trying to hold it really loosely. So it's exciting for us to talk to you all today. And it's also a little bit nerve-wracking because I feel like we're really in this like messy trying to figure out what we're talking about, why we want to do it, how we want to do it, and all these things. So it's fun to do some of this work together as a group, as all of you. So the intention for Kim and I is really to expand beyond the two of us. We have gotten, well, I guess I'll actually take a step back and say one of the reasons why I was really reluctant to leave the foundation where we worked was because I got so much professionally, personally, on really every level from being a part of a team. It was a really special experience to be on that team, to feel really profoundly supported by the folks I was working with day in and day out. And also pushed and challenged and just made better in so many ways. And so part of what I was reluctant about when it came to launching my own thing or leaving the foundation to build something new was a real feeling of loss and sadness at leaving that team behind. So I've been really lucky to be able to work hand in hand and side by side with Kim. The relationship that the two of us have has changed my life in many, many ways that I'm happy to talk about today and also later. We want it to grow outside of us as well. So the part of the hope and intention is that some of the stability and excitement and joy and curiosity we've been able to find in working together, that it can really grow beyond us. So we don't necessarily know what the group project will be, what the group will look like, who it will include, all those kinds of things, but I'm feeling just a lot of excitement and joy about the possibility. And we can talk a little bit more about some of the models we've been thinking about and exploring, but there's a lot of different ways to do this work. And some of them have been tried before by evaluators and some of them maybe haven't. And so we're just sort of excited for what's to come. So the group is loose. The group is a little bit mysterious in a good way. I hope that summed it up. Kim, do you have more to add?
No, that's lovely and wonderful and all very true. And I think just to name quickly some of the things that we're thinking about that are the reason why we wanted to be here today and have this conversation today is that Madeline and I don't have any interest in creating another big firm. We don't want to compete with evaluation firms. We don't want a girl boss. We don't want to be in charge of other people. We want to work in partnership and collaboration with others. And so we're trying to create a container for that, right? And do that in a way that's legal in terms of the business structure, but that maybe pushes at the edges or breaks some of the usual ways that we think about what this work can look like from a business standpoint. We'll talk a lot more about that, but we're thinking and headed toward being a worker-owned cooperative, thinking about what equitable profit sharing looks like, and what it might look like to build supportive communities of evaluators that that are supportive in ways that we don't get in other places. So we're still figuring out what all of that means, but yeah. Anything I missed, Madeline?
No, I think that's beautiful. Thanks, Kim.
Okay. Awesome. We'll turn it back to Nikki, I think.
So this is a picture of my great-grandpa Beaumont in the late 1800s. The picture is from the early 1900s, but his time on Earth was short. It was about 52 years. And so my dad celebrating my dad's birthday this week at 78 is, long. And dad's dad was 54 years. So in this kinship and lineage, there is a history and an importance. And this is a picture that is part of the not only the history of our tribe, but the history of BPC. And so I hope that you understand as I share to me what the word social entrepreneurship means. It's very intergenerational. It's in turn not just blood relatives, but it's a kinship and understanding all of the things that my ancestors had to go through, including like literal survival in order to thrive and be well, and do better every generation for their families and to give back. And so I always tease about this picture with great grandpa Beaumont, and Beaumont stands for beautiful mountain in our language. So I sort of like that. Like it's a good symbol. I'm not sure why it's not in here, but in my logo, but maybe it'll find its way in there somehow. The logo was made after I learned about oral history and things like that with family members. But I said, look at him, he's leading the pack, he's dressed cute, and he's making money. So like when I tell my husband, he asked, why are there packages showing up at the door? And I'm like, I gotta have a good business uniform. I gotta look cute, right? And so anyways, I sort of wanted to sort of unpack a little bit social entrepreneurship. It's a business model, and it's used by entrepreneurs or groups who develop, fund, and implement solutions to social, cultural, or environmental issues. I think it's more of a contemporary term, and I'm trying to give you I recognize that, and you have to speak multiple languages, and I'm not just talking about English. It's just like, how the positionality in all of it and how you frame it and what it's meant to be. And it's always interesting to me how the Western society comes up with things that they think are brand new. And I go to my sweat lodge where there's not computers, Wikipedia, or libraries, or searchable databases, and you learn about these teachings. So I feel very rooted and strong, like the teachings or the values and ethics that I get from family and cultural knowledge are things that I carry in a medicine bundle into my work as much as I can. So I just want to talk a bit about Indigenous entrepreneurship. What I'm telling you today is Nicky Bowman's story, but it's as diverse and unique as every entrepreneur's story, right? You're going to find some common things, but you're going to also find very unique teachings and skills and abilities and experiences along the pathway. I think that we do fall under social entrepreneurship, but a lot of my work is about ethics and culture. Not saying social entrepreneurs don't have ethics and culture, but like that's my first, second, and third gear. And then I say, okay, is this a good partner, and can we make money from it? Because we have to support the families, the families and the communities, that we are trying to contribute to in a good way. We respond to issues that are out there, but the purpose of BPC is to uphold and protect and grow allies to support the survivance of Indigenous rights, knowledges, and practices. And I try to work with partners from all directions, all tribes of humankind, you know, in doing that. And our mission is to provide professional activities, academic activities to intentionally ground, document, utilize, and advance our traditional knowledge, Indigenous scholarship, and the sovereign human and cultural and political rights that we have on the earth as people and as Native nations. And then the vision is to develop these strategic partnerships to strengthen that influence. And I feel like we're doing okay with that. Being the evaluator, once in a while we get to look at our mission and vision and values. If you look on my website, we have core values, which I think are my core values were really written because I was pissed off about the social academic world that I live in. And some of my publications are therapy. So I feel like I've gotten some things out of my system. I haven't been too mad lately, but if you look at our core values, some of the main ones, the Western perspective is not neutral. So before people can even darken or brighten my doorstep, they must read this and check the box. And that begins our relationship. And if they're not willing to do that, or during early conversations, I'll be like, well, you check the box that you read this. Are we not remembering that Western is not neutral, or that we want to partner and do work in a good way, funded equitably and appropriately for not only funded, but the amount of time that it takes to do work? There's multiple ways to build credible evidence, and there's 11 more sort of value statements that are really important to me, and they come up literally multiple times a day or night, depending on when I'm doing my work. So yesterday, I won't tell you, here's one quick example, working with the Beltway Bandit. Y'all know what those are, big contract holders. And when the request for proposals come out to do an Indigenous study, God forbid, it says that it's just with tribes, right? Because then we get like love bombed or whatever you want to call it in our inbox and everywhere else. And so the rub is we have to hurry up and get this study design in so we can get it to OMB. And you have like a week isn't enough time. And so when I'm going, this study design is so Western. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I go, the fact that you don't even know what that means tells me how much work we have to do with you. And we don't have enough time, and so then the direct talking Nicky Bowman gets down to brass tacks. I have a warm and fuzzy side too. That's my mother. My dad is more of he's a logger. He's an Indigenous logger. He doesn't talk and he has a sharp chainsaw. Okay. My mouth is probably the sharp chainsaw, is what I'm told. And I can hand sharpen a chainsaw too. I know how to do that and drive heavy equipment. It's really good. So anywho, I said, in one hand, you're asking me to hustle culture, right? I get it. We have to be responsive to the people who are giving us money. But in the other hand, you're saying some people feel a little sensitive because when we talked last week, I used the word white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy versus white abolitionist in context of using a model to say, where are we on here and how do we, over this 4-year project, move this forward? So I said, I want to be able to visit with people, but you're not giving me enough time. So you're asking me to hold. A lot of times the two things or more than two things that we hold sometime are in opposition to one another, okay? But we have to find that good middle ground. And that's sort of what, to me, being a social entrepreneur is. How do we find, if you look at my logo, it's a circle for a reason. No matter where you are in that circle, what color or a little further in or out, if you're a seedling, sapling, adult tree, ancestor tree, so that could be a merging business or a subject matter expert. You see what I'm saying? It all comes, I'm just like, everyone belongs in the circle. And so I'm just always trying to figure out how to make connections. We're all connected. Nialagomati, we are all related. So I just trying to find those threads and braid them together. So that's my perspective right now on entrepreneurship. There's something called Indian entrepreneurship, and that's sort of a branded, but it comes from Onabin, which is a really great organization. And you'll see some of the links coming up where you can dig in a little more. I just don't want to take up too much of Kim's time on this project, and Madeline. Thank you. Back to you.
Nikki, we could listen to you for hours, so don't stop yourself.
I am.
I think so much of what you say resonates, and so much of what you say is so important. And I think what Bowman Performance Consulting has done is shown others how to do some of this in ways that are more humane, ethical, with our values forward in a way that's really, really, really important. So I just thank you for that. So the way that we think about social entrepreneurship is maybe oversimplified, but as businesses with a mission to do some social good, right? To have some social impact. I would argue that in many ways, if we're doing evaluation with our values in the front, that it is inherently the case that evaluation is doing or can do social good or have social impact itself. Um, I think that we think that social entrepreneurship can take lots of forms, right? I think of like the concept of a B Corp comes to mind almost immediately when I hear the word social entrepreneurship, but I don't think it has to look like a B Corp or that you have to go through B Corp certification to be to lead with your values and to work that's meant for a broader good than your own. We recognize that evaluation processes and practices and products have been and are extractive and problematic, exploitative, oppressive, etc. And there are many ways that businesses can be the same. Right? They can be exploitative, extractive, problematic, oppressive. And so we're thinking a lot about how not only how we do the evaluative work that we do with sort of equity as a purpose and equity in process, but also what does that mean if we want that value or those ways of working to be mirrored in our business practices as well. Madeline, what else would you want to say here?
I think the only piece that I would add to that is that it not only supports and reinforces the work, but it actually makes the work easier in a way, right? That if you're working in a way that's aligned with your values, and then also the work that you take on is also aligned with your values, that each of those things reinforce and underline the others, right? And so we've been thinking really carefully about what this means. And in some ways, one of the things that Nikki mentioned is slowing down, right? That slowing down and being transparent are two pieces that we aren't often taught as being really important, especially in business, but that those are sort of two early things we've been thinking about and trying to incorporate quite a bit. And I don't want to take too much time because I know we've got like a million other things we want to talk about. But that relationships piece is really the core. That's really what it is to me.
So we thought of a few questions we thought we could try answering. These are our deep thoughts, a la SNL's Jack Handy. Why are we motivated to work differently? What is possible when working this way? How do we invest our values to our business? And if others wanted to work in this way, what next steps would you take? I know we want to get to your questions too, and so I wonder if Nikki, do you want to respond to like one or more of those questions, and we can do the same, and we'll sort of see what we have time for from there.
Sure. I mean, I can give a fast answer.
Yeah.
I can give a fast answer to start.
Cool.
I am motivated to work differently. So I love this picture because like if you would look right outside, I have a skeleton and we dress her up. Her name is Bonita, but it's to remind me of my ancestors. And underneath this building, the bones of probably Menominee people. And so working differently for me means being very relational and intentional. It's a very much, if you were talking about systems paradigm, it would be under an indigenous systems paradigm. Right now, there's only mechanistic and ecological paradigm models in system science theory, but an indigenous one is coming. That's because I stay connected. I work differently by staying connected to the land, connected to things not seen. Um, my new building has, we talk about work-life balance. Are you willing to put your money there? So as part of the social entrepreneurship isn't just outreaching, it's inward reaching. How do I become healthier? I think now that I'm 53, I'm glad I'm an older business because I can tell people F off if I want to. I don't say it like that, of course, but like I ain't working with bullshit. Like if you're bringing the bad juju in my life, there is no contract worth it because I can always get another contract. I'm a hustler. I believe literally to my bones and the ancestral teachings, the DNA that I carry from many, many generations of those are things that I believe in. And that makes no matter what new term or recession or whatever is blowing through, it makes you steady. If you still get scared and all that stuff, but you look back and go, oh, I might be okay. And you got to remind yourself. So I'm building. So in this building, I have a creative writing space where I do when I'm thinking of new model, like all that academic stuff that's rolling around in my head that I get informed by nature. I have a different room that I write in, and I have a meditation room. So there's a big room in there that in a different part of the building that you can go sit and tip back if your legs and back are sore from sitting on your chair too much. If you need downtime, we have food here. What food do you want? The company buys it and makes sure the fridge has it. And so my work is I try to balance physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional are all part of my day. The mental part or the intellectual part of this that comes from the medicine wheel, those are literally teachings. Um, Sometimes we rely too much on frontal lobes, and that ain't going to get you everywhere. So what's possible when working this way? If you take time, if you come from a place of rest instead of a place of panic and tiredness, the unseen energies around you, however you would say and believe that, or the tree you're sitting by, or the dog that's your BFF or your cat, whatever it is, a rock, it could be anything. Those things your intuition will be rested and be open. You need sleep. Like sleep is my number one health goal. And that's why I want rest here. We smudge often, we sing often. Eden has her serger and her sewing machine here. So the music of children singing or adults singing or that stupid sewing machine going are actually calming because she's making ribbon skirts and ribbon dresses and beautiful things for the people that we work with. So that's how I work differently. And I'm not going to work in any other way. So, and I have the privilege of being around for 2-3 decades, so I can say no to more things. So I don't try to live outside of my means either. My mental or emotional means, I try not to get too big for my britches, as my German grandma would say. And try to walk with cultural and academic humility, because if I don't, creator could take it away. Anyways, so I kind of answered number 3, how I invested in our values through the business, taking care of, whether it's the office space, the food, if we have to order beads so we can have some beaded winter earrings made, and investing in Eden sewing and beading, or in small women or native businesses who make these arts and crafts that I don't know how to do. I'm great at growing tobacco and growing a profit. So that's what I stick at. And then I reinvest. It's that circle. It's that decolonized way to decolonize funding, decolonizing wealth. And I wouldn't say that wealth fits me, but it's for a larger community, not just me. And then I'll stop there and talk about question 4 because I need a minute to think about that.
Yeah. I think a lot of our answers to these questions are reflected in what we said already. I think we're motivated to work differently because we can see what's possible when we work differently, and how important it is to work in relationship with one another and in partnership and true collaboration with one another. And what's possible when we work this way is that we have each other's backs and we can take the time and space that we need, and we can make slow, smart, intuitive choices about the work that we do and the way that we do the work. And I'll stop there. Madeline, you want to offer anything?
I think I would just offer that what I'm hearing in both what you're saying and a lot of what Nikki shared is just sort of this getting away from this idea that more and bigger is always better, right? That like there's a real pressure on knowledge workers to kind of produce, produce, produce. I mean, there's a pressure on all workers to do that. And it's pushing back against that idea a little bit and thinking about, well, what is the work actually, right? If the work is taking care of other people and we're doing it through evaluation, what does that mean? What does that look like? And also trying to build something that works for us now rather than working for us later once it gets to be big enough or to, grow in various ways, right? So I think a lot of what attracted Kim and I to building this new container together is that we want it to work now in the ways we want it to work, right? So I'll give a specific example, which is for me, in addition to being an evaluator, I'm also a writer. And I've always tried to fit in writing and making art kind of around the other things that I need to do in order to pay rent, to sort of get by in life, right? And so it's figuring out how can evaluation help fill that tank, and how can it support the life that I want to live in various ways, right? So in a lot of ways that means carving out time and making time for the rest of what makes my life enjoyable and wonderful, and thinking about work in that way, right, as a support for that rather than being the whole where I put all of my first energies and spend literally all of my time and effort there, right? So it's just sort of turning things a little bit more in their head and thinking about what's really important and how we can live the kind of lives that we want to live right now.
I'm just going to wing it right now. I'd like to acknowledge Ben, who helps with everything, including this PowerPoint. Ben, did you want to share a word or two on how we live our values, or how you feel like BPC works differently than a different place you worked for? I'm putting him on the spot, but he's growing. This is my little brother.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ben. I've been with Nicky for about 3 years now. I've worked a lot growing up. I started working at a pretty young age through different government programs since I was about 11. So I worked at a lot of different jobs. I can tell you that it's like a cliche because every company is always like, we're family and we take care of each other and we look out for each other. But I'll just reiterate the cliche is that we're family. And we tell each other all the time, and we support each other any way we can because it's a small organization, and we have to support each other to be successful, and remind each other about our values, because oftentimes there are bad people who try to impede our vision or the vision of Nicky, and these people need to be identified, and we need to make rearrangements in the organization sometimes. And I'm just glad to be a part of a good organization like BPC. So I'm happy to be here. She's doing good things, and I'm happy to support Nicky.
That means a lot, Ben. I appreciate it. There's so much that we could talk about, but part of the next steps, and when you want to work this way, how do you I got a design team and Ben's on it. He does a lot of stuff, but I call him my dirty 30. So one of the things I would say is, how do you move people it's BPC, it's our collective vision. How do you get people around that so that you can make beautiful things, so that so it's led by a group, not, or co-led, and Ben is part of that design team work, the analyst work. He gets to be on part of whether it's like a IC TIG or our direct projects, and having a kinship. So we have people from their 20s to their late 70s that work for BPC. So that's how much, because everyone is walking a different path, making space, a safe space to have hard conversations, but if you know what your values are and your ethics and your identity, then it makes those conversations easier, because then I can at least say, hey, this is where I'm coming from. Because a lot of times, when, like to Ben's point, when you work with people or on projects, sometimes it's a hard, heavy lift when you're first creating things. But if you have a consistent yuck, remember when I told you F off? Okay, I'll say it nicer. Like if you kind of got that yuck feeling, you have to say, is this in line with the values that I have on my site or the values that I was taught in ceremony or lodge. So I think the first next step, I always say, is inside. It's the shortest physical distance, but it's the longest journey. If you know who you are and what matters, to me, that's the most important in social entrepreneurship. And it's okay to say, I want to have a profit. So that helps Ben and others' family, including the baby that's going to be here in April. I'm sorry, but I had to say, big auntie energy. But you also need to be able to sort of the values and ethics that you have will help you get through financial things, HR things, investing and growing things. The other thing is it will help you say no. No is so empowering. Other next steps would be block your calendar. I block my calendars on Wednesdays and Fridays so I can do cool stuff that isn't the da 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 of direct work. You know what I'm saying? And what else would I say? Find somebody that you really like that you want to work with that you might be able to get pointers from or go to lunch with. Because didn't Matt just start out? Do shit outside of work. You know, with I don't know what I hit, Ben. Somebody or Matt, somebody popped in the room. I don't know what I'm seeing, but do stuff with your folks outside of work. That's relational if you can do that. And don't just talk shop, talk other stuff. Talk about your babies, your dogs, your garden, whatever.
I just took some of our staff to the Harry Potter show in Chicago when we were there last weekend, or 2 weekends ago now. Hey, I got to ask the question that MJ put into the chat. And either anyone can answer this. How do you respond to an RFP in a way that clearly communicates your approach? She addressed it to Nicky as the BPC approach, but this could easily be Madeline or Kim as well, if you want to answer that question.
I'll let Madeline and Kim go first. I'm going to wait.
We've got a great example, Kim, from that just happened, and it was an RFP that we ended up actually not going after as a group. And we'd made that decision in some interesting ways we can talk about. But I'm actually seeing that as one of our first projects, even though it didn't end up becoming an RFP that we even went after. But it meant that we thought really carefully about who we wanted to involve and what the role for both Camasia Group and for each member of the team would be. And Kim did a really beautiful job of making people visible to each other. So really trying to build out those partnerships and have people understand who else is involved in this work and who else is thinking in some of these similar ways. And so even though we didn't even end up going after that RFP as a group, it is building relationships and things are already coming out of it that we didn't anticipate. People are making connections between each other. People are seeing the ways that we are thinking about the work and wanting to work. And it meant that we spent a lot of time initially thinking about it, talking about it, having conversations about it, and talking about what we would need to do in order to go after it later. What would need to happen between now and say a year from now for us to feel really ready to go after a proposal like that. And so that is sort of a funny example because it's not actually an RFP that we went after, but it became sort of a test case for us about some of the ways that we want to work and some of the people that we have already in our networks who we feel really confident about working with. Kim, would you add other things about that?
That project is a really interesting example. And I would also say more often than not, it's really intentionally considering whether you want to go after the RFP to begin with. If it doesn't align, then why sort of force it? And we know that RFP response can be really inefficient way to find business anyway for many of us. And so we have looked at many RFPs that are like interesting and also are not values aligned enough or don't aren't worth the sort of time to put in to make a response, right? And occasionally I have communicated with the folks who've put the RFP out and like let them know what our lack of response is about. That's happened a couple of times, and I think again in the spirit of like being transparent and providing sort of feedback and input. Nicky, I'm sure you have things to say about this too.
Yeah, I do. I've said no, or I've said, I'll give you an example. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation had an RFP that went out for dealing with systemic health inequities early last year. And they sent it actually to only 3 companies, and mine was one. And the other 2 companies who didn't get it, I actually have them on our technical advisory group. So that was a way to live my values and bring them in. Anyways, they wanted, I don't know, they had probably $3,000 or $4,000 earmarked to work on their one of their grant portfolio programs that probably had 120-ish grantees in it to talk about addressing systemic health inequities. And I said, well, I'm not going to lay. So we had back and forth conversation. They wanted me to look at the RFP too and give feedback on it. And I thought, well, I ain't helping you fix all that up if you're not giving it to me. You know, that's what I think. And so anyways, I helped them a little bit though, so I wasn't too shady. But I said, if you really are working on this, 2 things, it's going to take more than $300,000 or $400,000 for this 3-year project. And this change, understanding systems change and addressing health inequities should not sit at the feet of just your grantees. So if you want me to seriously respond to this, I can. I can tell you what it costs and give it to you in phases so you can decide what you might like. And at the program and organizational level, yous are going to be working too, just as hard as the grantees that we work with. If you can agree to those things, I'll take the time to thoughtfully respond. We responded, we won it, and it was a $1.2 million project for 3 years. By the way, entrepreneurs, you can get grants. Expenditure grants are available to you if you didn't know that. That's something that I literally just found out in 2024. And I thought, oh, don't you tease me with a good time, because now I'm going to be looking for that I'm going to be responding to grant things if I need to. I don't respond to a ton of RFPs. We try to only carry 8 to 10 projects a year. I used to carry more than 20. And I can't do it anymore. They're bigger projects for longer years. And then if somebody ever wonders if I'm ever retiring, there'll be signs, because I'll probably only carry 1 or 2 projects, but I'll still be available for keynotes if people are paying a stipend and paying for expenses to wherever they want me to visit. I'll do that till I can't sell and not alive anymore.
Yeah,
Ben
I'm
is
sure
gonna
you
push
will.
Ben's gonna push
I'm
a
jumping in.
wheelchair.
I'm jumping in. First of all, I hope Ben's not in your office and you don't stick him in the basement with the pipes. Does he get a good office in your space?
He
I don't
works
know,
from
the
his
basement at home actually.
I assumed as much. I thought she's got this brand new office and she stuck him down in the basement. What's up with that? I got to ask some of my questions because I know we're running out of time, but I do want to ask some of these questions. So the question I love to ask everybody when they come on, I call them my James Lipton questions, are if you had to start all over again, what are some things you would do? Or, you know, another way to think about it, if you could go whisper in your ear 30 years ago, Nikki, or talk to yourself, Madeline and Kim, when you were first starting out, or how you're approaching this, what are some of the things you put in place to develop this practice? Obviously, we've talked about your social entrepreneurship, but what are some of those practical things that you do?
double signatures for things I was stolen from. And
Mhm.
I would have my husband involved sooner. He just started working for us maybe 4 years ago, and he's gonna hopefully be quitting his job soon. But yeah, double signatures, and not saying yes to everything, because then part of the reason bad things happen is because you're not around. You're just running around chasing the next high of who wants to work with you. That's an ego-driven thing, and that's not working with academic business or cultural humility.
Kim, Madeline?
I think I would have taken the leap sooner and tried to sit with the discomfort of not knowing all the answers sooner. Like I think leaping with less fear, maybe. I don't know. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say invite people into the mess and invite people in when you're still trying to figure it out, right? That's what we're trying to do today. That's what we've been trying to do is and sort of thinking about as evaluators, right? That you don't need to be the experts. You need to be the one to ask the questions. You need to be the one to encourage reflection and living that out for ourselves as well.
Is now a good time to be an independent consultant, to start an independent consulting practice?
Sure.
Why not?
I think the answer is probably it depends, right? It depends on your own circumstances and what is possible for you and feasible for you. But there's plenty of work to do. Like, that's not the problem. So don't live in fear of that, I don't think.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
I
it's
would.
not a recession or pandemic, so I'd say go for it. The other thing is, if you partner with a Beltway Bandit or a mid-sized company, or even a small company, uh, uh, you can learn a lot from working, for any of those, and you're going to learn different things depending on the size and type of consulting firm, because a Beltway Bandit runs way different than a BPC, and all I would say is, if you're gonna you can also keep in your mind, you got to make sure that whoever you're working for allows you to have a sidecar, for ethical and whatever reasons. And then also, if it's a small business, our business approach is, hey, Matt, and I've talked to Matt and a couple other people, like, how do you have brother and sister businesses? Because I live in a very rural, remote part. So most of my staff aren't in the office. They're in different parts of Wisconsin and 4 or 5 states outside of Wisconsin, one in Canada, that we work with regularly. But that's sort of a different business model, you know what I'm saying? But then those are your homies for life. They can travel with you on projects. So it's safe too. And then hopefully they'll write you into other stuff, and that's sort of how you keep the love and the coins flowing.
All right, well, we're at the end of the hour. I literally have about 10 questions that we're not going to get to today. Um,
I'll
but
stay on for 5 minutes.
I'm gonna stop the recording, but we're gonna stick around. Anyway, I'm gonna stick around. I got other things to say here. All the people in YouTube land, I hope you had a good time. It was definitely a roller coaster.